Yes, that's right. I did the unthinkable. Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Now in today's episode, we're going to be unboxing and installing this brand new, never opened copy of Windows Vista Ultimate. What's the occasion, you ask? Well, last month was the 15th anniversary of Windows Vista's retail release back in 2007. I know, who cares, right? I mean, this is one of the worst Windows versions of all time. Who wants to sit through a video about it? Well, evidently you do, because you clicked on this one, so thank you so much for that. And speaking of the phrase thank you, Skillshare, I gotta thank them for sponsoring this video and for helping me purchase this, because even though Windows Vista has the reputation it has, buying a brand new, never opened copy is, you know, a little bit pricey. The other thing I want to do in this video is really challenge your perception of Windows Vista. I mean, yeah, we've been making fun of it here in the intro, and that's just because it's so easy to do. I mean, as we all know, Windows Vista was met with wide criticism when it launched, and all of that tarnished the public's perception of it. I mean, I guarantee if you were to ask the average computer user back in 2007 if they were going to upgrade to Windows Vista, they'd say something to the effect of, heck no, I'm not. I mean, everybody I know says it's terrible, and it's got all these problems. I don't want to upgrade to that. I'm going to stick with XP. And that's exactly what happened. Windows Vista never surpassed Windows XP in market share. So today I want to talk about why that is, why Windows Vista failed, or at least was perceived as such a failure and is considered one of the worst Windows versions of all time. I want to take a step back and examine the criticism that it received now that we're on the other side of it, over 10 years after Windows Vista launched, and talk about the reasons why it gained such a horrible reputation and the things that were, quite frankly, completely exaggerated. So if you were out shopping for Windows Vista in 2007, one of the first things you would notice is the newly designed packaging. I mean, putting this side by side to Windows XP, you can see it is substantially different. No longer is there a cardboard box. This is made from plastic. It's smaller, it's sleeker. So opening this, well, the first thing we got to do is tear this sticker, or this piece of tape here rather, on the right side. And so we're going to tear that off very slowly but surely here. And there we go. Oh my gosh, guys, for the first time ever, here we go. And now we can pull this red tab, and there it is. For the first time, seeing it since it left the factory, Windows Vista Ultimate Upgrade. So we're going to go ahead and take out our documentation here, and we'll set the packaging aside for now, and we'll see what we've got. So right here, we have a Before You Begin pamphlet, and you also have the ability to, kind of like what you had with Office 97, certainly much older than Vista here, but Office 97 only came on a CD, but Microsoft allowed you to request floppy diskettes. We've got the same thing going on here. If you needed CDs, you could request a CD copy of Windows Vista, which was useful because, well, if you didn't know you needed to have a DVD drive, you were going to kind of be out of luck until you filled this out. And here is the Windows Vista Ultimate Quick Start Guide, which is going to take you through every wonderful thing you would want to know about Windows Vista, all the programs. I mean, look at this. Isn't this glorious, guys? Tells you what's new. It tells you what you need to know to get it installed, I'm sure. That's probably on the front here. Yep, upgrading or installing Windows Vista before you begin, all that good stuff. And of course, on the back, actually not on the back, where's the product key? Where is the, oh, it's on the back of the, yeah, it's on the back of this thing right here. And speaking of the outer packaging, we can take a brief look at that here. So here you go. It tells you a little bit about some individual features here. Obviously, some of this would change depending on what edition of Vista you got. And speaking of editions, on the back here, you've got a comparison chart for the 4 main editions of Windows Vista, which we will definitely be talking about later. But for now, let's go ahead and swap over to the trusty Dell Latitude D610, and we're going to upgrade in quotes, you'll see why in a minute, to this copy of Windows Vista Ultimate. Alright, so here we are on the trusty Dell Latitude D610, and the first thing you're probably wondering is, Michael, you clearly got an upgrade copy of Windows Vista Ultimate. Why on earth do you have Windows 2000 installed? You can't upgrade from 2000 to Vista without XP in between. And you would be right, but I wanted to install Windows 2000 on here to illustrate one of the first criticisms with Windows Vista, and that is confusion. On this box right here, up at the top left, you see this little upgrade box, and it says, for users running Microsoft Windows 2000 Professional, Windows XP, or Windows Vista only. So when I got this, in the mail, I was saying to myself, well, wait a second, can you upgrade from Windows 2000 to Vista? I didn't think so. I thought you had to have XP. And it turns out that yes, that is the case, but this wording on here would lead you to believe, if you were to read that, you would probably think, oh, I can upgrade from Windows 2000 to Vista. Well, you can't. If we continue reading here, it says, backup and clean install may be required. See back of box for details. So it turns out that you were not able to upgrade from Windows 2000 to Windows Vista, but you were able to get the upgrade copy and qualify for the upgrade pricing. It's just not really well worded. And sure enough, on the back here, it says at the bottom, you have to be running Windows XP Service Pack 2. So we've got the disk in the drive, and we are running Windows 2000 Service Pack 4, which is required to be able to launch the Vista setup program from within Windows 2000. And there it is. And yeah, we don't have the proper graphics driver installed, so that's why we're running in a low color mode here and at a lower resolution. And we will accept the license terms, and right here is where it tells you that, hey, even though you bought an upgrade copy, you can't upgrade from Windows 2000. You have to do a clean install. So let's go ahead and click on custom here, and we will choose our partition here. And right here, it's going to let you know that because this partition contains files from a previous Windows install, it will move some of those files to a windows.old folder and store them in there. So this is where you kind of get a like semi-upgrade, because some of your files will remain, right? It's not going to delete everything, but it's not an in-place upgrade. It's not going directly from 2000 to Windows Vista. This is still a clean install, but again, that's a little confusing for people, right? And speaking of confusing, let's get back to the Windows Vista editions here, because forget this whole upgrade thing, right? Windows Vista had 6 editions, 4 of which were released here in the US. You had Starter, Home Basic, Home Premium, Business, Ultimate, and Enterprise. Now, Starter, just like XP Starter, was only available in developing markets, and Enterprise was only for, well, enterprise users. Even still, with 4 editions of Windows Vista, that is double what XP had. With Windows XP, you had Home and Professional. Simple, basic, not confusing at all. If you were a home user, you bought Home. If you were a business user, you bought Professional. Well, now with Windows Vista, you had 2 Home editions. And so it's like, what was the difference between them? Well, the major difference was that Home Basic didn't have any of the fancy arrow visual effects. That was reserved for Home Premium and above. But it just made things unnecessarily confusing. I know what Microsoft was trying to do. They were trying to kind of have this entry-level version of Vista that was more affordable, but they really could have probably done without it and lowered the cost of Home Premium, and certainly still turn to profit, and in the process not make things so confusing for people. Because, I mean, people who looked up this stuff and knew about Vista and had followed the development and all that, they knew all this stuff, right? But the average computer user is not going to be as invested in the Windows ecosystem. They're not going to know all this stuff. So when they go to the store, they're going to see 4 different copies of Vista and probably be pretty confused. In fact, the OEMs, the computer manufacturers, saw this as a potential problem. There's an email from Dell that was sent to Microsoft sometime in 2005 before Vista even finished development, and they expressed concerns over having more than 2 SKUs of Windows Vista. They saw the potential for it to create unnecessary confusion, and all of this wording by Microsoft on the box here about this is an upgrade, but it's not an upgrade, just adds to the confusion even more. And even on the back here, on this comparison chart, this 4th one down here says, best choice for laptops. Now you would read that and think, oh, okay, well, one of these is going to be the best choice for a laptop, right? No, 3 of them are. Home Premium, Business, and Ultimate. They're all the best choice for laptops. That doesn't really help. I mean, you're just getting rid of one of the versions. I mean, what's the best for laptops? Well, there really isn't. Honestly, that probably shouldn't even be in that list. I think personally that if Microsoft were to have gone with the 2 edition format like they did with XP, Windows Vista would have had a marginally better perception by consumers. The next set of criticisms we're going to touch on have to do with advertisements and expectations. But first, and I'm sure you all were expecting this, I need to take a moment to advertise today's video sponsor, Skillshare, the online learning community with thousands of classes designed to help you learn new skills or brush up on something that you already know, whether that be graphic design, video editing, or even programming. What I really like about them is that the entire platform is designed specifically around learning. Classes are split up into multiple sections for convenient viewing with no ad breaks, like this one. One of the first classes I started taking on Skillshare was this one on productivity by Mike Vardy, which really goes into some good habits that you can implement into your workday, which is so important if you're self-employed or just work from home. If that sounds interesting to you, just click the link down below, and if you're one of the first 1,000 people to do so, Skillshare will give you a free 1-month trial of their premium membership, which gives you access to everything already on the site, plus the new classes that are added each week. So be sure to check them out, and huge thanks again to Skillshare for making this video possible. Now, let's get back to talking about Windows Vista. Now, Windows Vista was heavily promoted by Microsoft, as you would expect, for their latest product. Most notable was the WoW Starts Now ad campaign, in which Microsoft really positions Vista as this amazing, groundbreaking thing. I mean, Microsoft literally compares Vista to the Apollo 11 launch in one of these ads, at least what appears to be the Apollo 11 launch. I spent way too much time comparing the footage. It's clear that they cut some things and removed parts of it, but I'm just going to say it's the Apollo 11 launch because that's what it looks like to me. And when you make a comparison to something as historically significant as the Apollo 11 launch, people are going to have very high expectations for whatever it is you're selling. And so people did. I mean, when Windows Vista launched, it had all these new features and people were expecting a lot from it. The problem was not everybody got to experience them, and that's because Vista had higher system requirements than Windows XP. Now, of course, it's normal for these requirements to increase over time. That's just how technology works. But the problem was Aero needed even beefier hardware, double the RAM, a 1 GHz CPU, preferably a dual-core one, and a more powerful GPU. So your XP computer might have met the minimum specifications, but not the Aero specifications. And there was actually a class action lawsuit over this, over the Vista Capable branding on OEM computers. Now, Vista Capable, really quickly, these were computers sold with XP pre-installed, but then users had the option of requesting a copy of Windows Vista that looked like this, an express upgrade to Windows Vista. It was a full copy of Vista, like in this case, this is Windows Vista Home Premium. So you could request that, and your computer was essentially guaranteed to be able to run Vista. Well, you're probably saying, that sounds great, that's awesome, give people the choice, that's wonderful. Except there was one major problem. Those computers only had to meet Windows Vista's minimum system requirements, not the Aero system requirements. So that meant that people who had seen these advertisements promoting Windows Vista with all this nice Aero eye candy, and then they went to a store and purchased a Windows Vista capable machine, they very well could have thought that that meant they were going to get what they saw in the ads. But that was not necessarily the case. And this also ties into our first issue that we talked about, because having two sets of system requirements and this whole Windows Vista capable fiasco could really confuse people. Now, one of the most common complaints associated with Vista is compatibility issues. And if you had upgraded to it on a relatively older machine, you probably experienced some of these. Many hardware manufacturers just didn't have proper drivers available at the time of Vista's launch, especially for older devices. So naturally, people were pissed off because, like, if your printer didn't work with your Windows Vista computer, that was a major problem. If your graphics driver didn't work when you upgraded, that's a major problem. But blaming Microsoft entirely for this just really isn't fair, to be completely honest, because these drivers were the responsibility of the hardware manufacturers. They released the drivers, and if they just didn't have drivers available when Vista launched, that's on them. But people still blamed Microsoft and blamed Vista for those issues, and it's not really hard to see why people came to that conclusion. But it turns out that the largest cause of initial crashes in Vista was due to NVIDIA drivers. Yeah, even more than Microsoft-related issues, and we also know this from that class action suit from the documents released in it. So Windows Vista no doubt had a rough start, but once it had been out for a few years and hardware vendors had more time to develop drivers and people got more accustomed to the 4 editions of Vista, it actually became, and you might not really believe this, a pretty good operating system to use. I would say this occurred by the time Service Pack 1 was released in 2008. Looks like we're restarting here, which is pretty great. And that's a time that I remember vividly because I got a new PC that year. And sure enough, it came with Windows Vista. And I had no issues with it at all. Nothing significant that I can remember, and it's only natural, right, for software that had been out in the wild for a longer period of time to play better with the hardware that's out there. I think that if Vista's release was delayed a little bit, perhaps even a year, these issues wouldn't be as severe, but Microsoft was likely pretty eager to get done with Windows Vista since they had been working on it for a very long time. Windows Vista has one of the longest development cycles, if not the longest development cycle, with the exception of Windows 10 since it was continually in development for so long. And that's because of Windows Vista's very complex development history. Now, I've talked about this a handful of times on this channel, but the major thing of note is that it did not go to its original plan at all. And Microsoft ended up, as a last-ditch effort to save the project, ended up resetting development in the year 2004 after the OS, which at that time was known as Longhorn, had essentially become a bloated mess. But one thing I will say is it's honestly kind of a shame that Windows Vista's development ended up the way that it did, because it would have been really cool to see Windows Longhorn as Microsoft originally intended it. There were some pretty interesting and cool features that Microsoft was working on to implement into Windows Longhorn. WinFS is a prime example. I could do an entire video on that. I probably should because there's so much to unpack there. Really cool features like that never saw the light of day outside of Microsoft, and it's fun to think that, what if the development process went as intended and Longhorn, if they even decided to call it Vista, released in 2003, and I think Windows would be a completely different operating system today. It's just kind of fun to think about. But going back to what I was saying, Windows Vista definitely got better over time once it had been out there for a few years, but its perception never did. And one of the major reasons for that, I would say, is mob mentality or groupthink, whatever you want to call it. It's really incredible how, word of mouth, how that really shapes our perception of things. Because people just heard about all these problems with Vista. People who have never used it, they saw Apple's highly successful Get a Mac ad campaign, which pointed out all of Vista's flaws. And they said, well, everybody says Vista's terrible. Everyone I know is saying don't buy it, avoid it, stick with XP. And Microsoft tried to challenge this perception with what they called the Mojave experiment, which not the Mac OS version. This was a very interesting social experiment where Microsoft got a handful of XP users together who had never used Windows Vista, but had a very negative view of it, a very negative perception. And when they were asked about it, they said things like, oh, Vista's terrible, it crashes all the time, there's all these problems, I'm not going to get it. So Microsoft said to them, okay, we're going to show you the next version of Windows called Windows Mojave. In actuality, it was just Windows Vista rebranded to look like this new operating system. And you know what? Over 90% of the people there praised it. They gave positive feedback. They were like, this is great. This is awesome. I love this, new feature. Some of them went into some of the new features and said that they really liked it. Then Microsoft breaks the news to them and they say, well, we just showed you Windows Vista. And so it goes to show you how people's first impressions, even if that's just by hearing from people that Vista's terrible, affects the overall reception of it. Because even today, Windows Vista is still remembered as one of the worst Windows versions of all time. You've probably seen it before on those list websites, the worst operating systems ever, and Vista's always near the top. It's just become cemented. Its legacy is already finalized. The fact of the matter is everything I've told you today probably won't do much to change it, and that's just how it is. I mean, it's been years, right, since Vista launched. Most people have forgotten about it. They've moved on, right, as the tech world does. But on this channel, we like to take a look back. We like to go the other direction, talk about vintage technology, the old stuff, and how it really shaped the modern tech world today. And Windows Vista definitely did, even if it was in a negative way. I mean, Microsoft learned a lot from it. Well, Windows 7's launch went a lot better, but I mean, Windows 8, nah, I mean, that was not... Microsoft, again, tried to kind of, I think, push the envelope too much, and it ended up backfiring on them. Yeah, that's Windows Vista. That is its legacy, and it will, even if it's not completely fair, this will be remembered as one of, if not the worst Windows version of all time. So you know what? We're going to explore it a little bit. Here we are at the setup screen. We've got it installed finally, and let's go ahead and go through the initial user account details entering process here. I'm going to choose a different user profile this time. I always go with the default one. Let's pick that one. And we're going to call this Vista is Awesome, because, well, it is. We're going to change the default wallpaper here to this one. I always liked this one. I thought it was pretty cool. Oh, I almost forgot. We're not completely done with the setup yet. We got to go through the performance checks here. Preparing your desktop. It truly never gets old, man. Oh, here it is. Here it is. So I actually don't think that this computer meets Windows Vista. Let me just pull up the system requirements here. So we've got, okay, yeah, we've got 1 gig of RAM and we have a 1.86 gigahertz processor. So we should, I think, I mean, the graphics driver, what do we got here? Is this just integrated graphics? Windows Aero is not even an option, so it is disabled because unfortunately it appears that our graphics driver is not adequate enough. So there you go. I mean, what we were just talking about, you know, if I had purchased Windows Vista Ultimate expecting that I was going to get all that really cool stuff, well, turns out I'm not going to in this case. Now, I mean, to be fair, you could totally blame that on the user. You could blame the whole, you know, thing that resulted in that class action suit on the users not doing enough research and looking into that stuff. But there is the argument from the other side that Microsoft could have been more clear about this, and that's why that lawsuit even happened in the first place. So the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to load up some of the Windows Vista games. Let's do Chess Titans, one of my favorite games to play on Windows Vista. I really liked the game redesigns. I thought we'll go intermediate here. It's been a little while since I've played chess, though. I was a huge fan of these redesigned games. I just really liked them. The XP ones and the pre-XP ones are, of course, so iconic, but it was really nice to see how they really arrowified, if that's even a word, like Solitaire, Spider Solitaire, and all these classics. So let's launch Solitaire here as well, just to show you, if you forgot, how nice that Solitaire looks here. Certainly much better than the, gosh, it still annoys me that Microsoft got rid of the Windows card games in Windows 8, and, you know, that went into Windows 10 and Windows 11 as well. Really annoying, Microsoft. You should have kept these in, because, I mean, they were freaking awesome. Though they definitely don't fit into the Windows 8 Plus design language. Inkball, too. Oh my gosh, man. Inkball. This was a really fun game, and for the longest time I thought it was introduced in Windows Vista, but that is not the case, because this was in Tablet PC Edition, Windows XP Tablet PC Edition. And this was, judging from the fact that, is that going to go in itself? Okay, no, I had to do a little bit there. So, yeah, this was in Windows XP Tablet PC Edition, and it was intended to be used with a stylus, and that's why your cursor here changes to this little stylus, because you were supposed to draw on the screen and get the balls into their respective receptacles. And it gets a little bit confusing here, or not confusing, but complicated, I'd say. This isn't really complicated. You've got two different colors here. But, you know, it can get a little bit challenging. That's the word I'm looking for. Why couldn't I think of that? It gets a little challenging as you progress through these levels here, because you don't want the orange to go into the blue or the blue to go into the orange. So, no, go that way. Go that way. Come on. No! No, go this way. No, don't go that way. So yeah, I always liked this game. I spent, I mean, I'd always spend kind of free time in here. And gosh, what else? I know I played Inkball, I played chess, I never played Mahjong or Purple Place. I don't even know what was Purple Place? Is this like a, oh, is this like a matching thing? Yeah, I think it is. Try to remember what pictures are on the tiles you've turned over. This way when you find a picture you can see it. Yep, okay. I never played Purple Place on my Windows Vista computer. I think out of all the Microsoft games on Windows Vista, I played Chess Titans the most, but I did like Solitaire, Spider Solitaire, and Inkball. Oh, and of course, Minesweeper. What a classic. And I really, really like what they did with Minesweeper here. It certainly is, it's not the same as Windows XP and prior, but it is pretty... Oh, and the whole mine animation as well. The mine exploding. Yeah, that's really, really awesome. So... let's see, gosh, what else do we want to do? Oh my gosh. I mean, this video is definitely a bit on the longer side. I wanted this video to be primarily focused on what I was talking about during the setup process, just about Vista's legacy and all of the issues it had. Just really like talk about that and spend most of the video talking about that. So this just here is just kind of having fun. You know, we've installed it. We're just exploring around, having a good old time, right? Let's go to my computer. Let's go to, oh, you know what we can do? We can go into our windows.old folder here and see all of our Windows 2000 stuff. So you see it's copied over the program files folder and the documents and settings. This is, like I said, kind of a semi-upgrade because it does keep some of your files. It keeps everything in your documents folder and it keeps all your programs. It's just not an in-place upgrade, and it does get rid of everything else. So you would definitely want to have backed up your hard drive, or just at least your most important files on your hard drive before you went and installed Windows Vista. But yeah, we can go into documents and settings here and go to our M user. That's the account that I used in Windows 2000. And then if we go to my documents, right here we've got the 4 service packs. I just copied all 4 of them over because I didn't know if you could upgrade from RTM directly to Service Pack 4. Turns out you can, because I did. So that was nice. So yeah, you've got that in here. You got my pictures. We have the classic Windows 2000 sample photo. There it is, the only sample photo in all of Windows 2000. So yeah, and it's actually got the my pictures kind of, or not the same pictures icon here, but it's got a custom folder icon, which is pretty nice. So we could copy this over to our pictures folder if we want to, or just move it rather. And yeah, honestly guys, I think that's a good stopping point. I think we really touched on everything that I wanted to touch on. That is Windows Vista. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up and get subscribed down below, turn on notifications, all that good stuff. And as always, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.